These factors are a little bit easier to navigate, in my opinion, if people have some level of experience. But
coaching that's the essence of it, is that the agenda is the clients. It's not the coach. The questions are the key to coaching. If you're not asking questions, like they say, one thing's for certain, change will occur.
I hear a lot of people say you don't want to be the smartest person. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm very excited to introduce my special guest, Merz of Vertua Coaching. He has years of experience working with very large corporations. He also works with medium and small business owners, their teams, their professionals, and he has so much insight to share. I think you're really going to enjoy what he has to say. Eric, welcome to the show.
Charles, great to be here.
No, that's great. And Eric has 19 years in coaching, working with companies, but it's very interesting to hear how he got started in this. And it wasn't the original thing that he set out to do. So, Eric, again, welcome to the show. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us about your background and how you got started in agriculture and then opened up your coaching business.
Yeah, well, Charles, thanks. Thanks for having me today. And, you know, it goes back to, I started out working on a farm because my family had a farm, right?
Right.
So I grew up always thinking I'm going to be a farmer, and I was a farmer for a number of years. And as things got more challenging, I started looking at other things that I might want to do with my time. I still have a farm service business. We're still involved in that, helping farmers grow their crops, harvest their crops, take care of their crops. And I have a partner that runs that. It allows me to do what I do now, which I really enjoy. I've been doing this for going on the 19th year. And how it all started really was I started asking that question, what could I do, that would contribute to my community or my industry that would be different than what I was already doing. I felt it was a little more transactional what I was doing in my farm service business. And I wanted to do something that was more involved with people, getting, more involved in helping people. And I started with the Rotary Club of Wasco. Actually, we built a leadership program for youth leadership in high school in conjunction with Wasco High School. We took these students to different places every month, industry, government, and we exposed them to leaders. And the whole thing was themed around leadership. And we had a curriculum. So we had in class. One day we would have a class for about a half a day, and then we would have a full day. We'd go out on these trips and get exposed to firefighters, to the forensics at CSI in Kern County, to, Holloway's gypsum mine, to wonderful plants, their pistachios and their almond plants, as well as Grimway, and in a number of other industries, oil industry. We got involved with Berry Petroleum. At the time, their headquarters was here. And what I learned by facilitating this is I really love facilitating. So that's how I started the quest of, well, what could I do with this? And maybe I could even make some money doing it, but just, how could I do this professionally? So I started researching how coaches at those days, 2006, there weren't hardly any coaches.
Well, now, yeah. I mean, to your point, I think there's a lot of people advertising their coaching services, but so you're kind of one of those folks that started in the early days, right? Of coaching.
My colleagues in agriculture, when I tell them I was going to embark on this journey, they would look at me kind of cross-eyed, like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? They didn't have any idea what a coach was. What does a coach do? And we think of a coach as a sports coach, or something like that. And what I found was coaching is different than consulting. There were consultants out there telling people, prescribing what to do to improve your business, your processes, or sales, training. All those things are necessary.
Right.
But coaching is a little different. Coaching is really uncovering for the client or the person being coached. It could be an individual within an organization, or it could be the whole organization. But what their potential is, and uncovering the possibilities of what the potential could be, and then creating a plan with them, not creating a plan for them.
Well,
So
that's kind of
different.
interesting. That's interesting that you say that, because I think that distinction is very important. Because I think people would probably look at this, or if they're watching this interview or listening to it, they'd be like, okay, well, isn't a coach a consultant? I mean, aren't they supposed to come in and fix all your problems and then just kind of lay out a roadmap and all of a sudden, everything's just going to work out and everything's going to be great. But I think what you're really driving at is that the idea is that you're really wanting to, there's a saying, right? If you, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the premise that you guys are going for, especially in your coaching business.
Yeah. Coaching is that's the essence of it, is that the agenda is the clients. It's not the coach.
Right.
That brings the agenda. It's the client that brings the agenda. So when somebody says, well, what do you do to help people? It's kind of hard to just pin it down. I mean, it's different. Each one of us is different. Each one of us have different capabilities. Each one of us have different visions and dreams of what we want to do. And it's really surfacing those out and then removing the helping the client see what obstacles they can remove to get them where they want to go. Because really, it all boils down to getting a plan, implementing the plan, executing the plan. That sounds simple on paper, but it's not so simple because there's a lot of things involved. There's skills and knowledge that needs to be attained. And so sometimes I ask questions, what do you need to know about this to be better at it or to, get the results you want? So they're going to go to training, or they're going to go read books, or they're going to go listen to podcasts like this.
Right.
It could be any of those things that they believe is going to help them get there. And everybody's going to be different. So if the coach just says, well, you're going to do it this way, then you're just telling them what to do. And it's like, and most of us have had parents, and we've had teachers, and we've had coaches in sports. They tell us exactly what to do and how to do it, right? And I found business owners, they're entrepreneurs for a reason. They really don't want to be told what to do and how to do it, right? And a lot of us are that way about a lot of things.
Yeah, I could attest to that. I mean, it's really hard to just have somebody come in and say, oh, man, this is what you need to do. It's like, okay, well, why? Tell me. Oh, because this is going to help your business. Well, in what way? So I think what you're talking about really is driving home the point that people have to buy into this, and they have to want, right, to make those strides. And your job as a coach is to really kind of come alongside and challenge that person and help them get there. But ultimately it's going to be their decision and their way with guidance.
Right. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes I don't put on the consulting hat and help somebody with something they don't know about or something I may have read about that I can give them. But I won't ever say, well, this is the only way you can do this, because they might have a better way. Once they see what I present, they may take it and totally modify it to work within their structure and with their organization. And so then that's going to work better in the long term, right? Because they're going to build it and they're going to own it. If I build it and then I give it to you and then you do it, but you don't do it 100% and it fails, you're going to say, well, you gave me a bad prescription for success. You're no good at this, right? But if you build the prescription and you don't execute, it's all on you. So really, coaching is you don't ever want the monkey really on your back.
Right.
You want the client to take the monkey and go with it and do what needs to be done, which kind of brings me to why I changed my name 2 years ago.
Okay.
From Eric A. Merz Consulting, which is great. I mean, everybody knows that's me, right?
Hey, it makes sense,
It's
right?
clear,
It's your name, right?
But
They know
I was
who you
kind
are.
of bored with it, and that's probably one of my problems. Is I like change. I enjoy change. I enjoy looking at new things. I've always been that way because when I think of the word Vertua coaching, you won't find it in the dictionary. I created it out of 2 words. I used to really drive my English teachers crazy in high school because I would always make up these words to put into my papers, and they would try to grade me down, but they didn't really want to grade me down, if you know what I mean. It's like,
Yeah.
It made sense what I made, but it wasn't in the dictionary.
Right.
But Vertua comes from 2 Latin words, veritas and tua, which is your truth. So what I found is that what's the most common thing that I do with all my clients, regardless if it's an individual, an organization. It's helping them find their truth,
Right.
And this is, you can take this on a religious, vein, but it wasn't so much that. It's like whatever it's your truth, that's what I want to help them get to. I want to help them move to that truth, understanding, why they want to do it, why they want, who they want to do it with, where they want to be, what markets they want to be in, or who they want to do business with. It's about their truth. It's not about my truth. It's about their truth. So that's where that comes from. It's not this kind of thing like, well, we dream up our own religion or anything like that. It's helping them find their truth. And you know how you do it? You ask questions. The questions are the key to coaching. If you're not asking questions that are open-ended to where the person has to ponder. So, for example, if I ask you, how's business going? Then you're going to describe it. But if I said, is business going good? It's a yes or no, right?
Right.
I don't get much information out of that.
Well, one of the things that I've been really driving into that I've noticed is that, given the current climate, I mean, I always kind of refer to this as, you have the micro and the micro and the macro, right? So the micro is, inside of your organization and what you can do to, potentially improve, your processes or marketing or whatever that is. And then you have the macro factors, which are really outside of your control. So, of course, given the economy right now with inflation and expenses going up, I think a lot of people are kind of getting emotional about, their business. Like, what do I do? I haven't quite seen this. I mean, that's nothing new under the sun necessarily, but these factors are a little bit easier to navigate, in my opinion, if people have some level of experience. But I'm thinking these days with, a lot of this, I mean, I don't think people have seen this type of inflation.
We haven't seen it in our lifetime.
Well, in a long time, right? Or maybe back in the late 70s, there was a level of that was coming in. But I think a lot of people are business owners or entrepreneurs or whatever it is, professionals, are working through trying to understand, okay, how do I adjust my micro, right? My internals, to navigate the externals. And it seems like things are changing a lot faster. So this is probably very emotionally charged, because I think entrepreneurs get into business because they're passionate about what they do. So, I mean, as a coach, like, how do you navigate through that? Because I think there's probably a lot of that going on, just maybe in the current climate, but even before, when, you started like 19 years ago, right? It's always something that people are trying to deal with and work through.
Like they say, one thing's for certain, change will occur.
Right.
The speed of change right now is incredible. I mean, technology is driving certain things. Things are moving faster. The world's getting smaller in terms of communication and information. Whether the information's good or not could be a question some days, right?
Right.
Is it accurate? But business owners have to take all that into consideration. They also have to learn to manage their emotions in their decision-making process. So part of what I try to do is help people take a step back and look at everything, right? And not just plow forward necessarily, given the parameters that they have today versus what maybe when they started their business, they've completely changed. The dynamics of their industry, the labor market, the technology, and if they don't embrace that change to a degree where there's understanding to where they can make the adjustments internally, they won't survive. I mean, things are changing rapidly.
Well, I mean, let's just take, where you started. You were in the farming business. You still are, right?
Yeah.
You're in the farm services business, right? For, people that, are farmers and you provide a service. And I have to imagine that just even in agriculture, I mean, we're in an area that's heavily ag based, right? In the Central Valley of California. We also have, the oil industry. So, but we won't kind of tap into that. But like, let's just think about that. Like, you probably have this way that, business has been done, and then all of a sudden, now it's changing. But even that seems to be changing at a much more rapid scale than it has in the past.
Oh yeah. with the change, a lot of it's moved with political changes, right?
Sure.
The regulations,
Right. The macro stuff that you really don't have control over.
the water regulations, particularly in this county, we're going to see an impact. There's going to be less acres farmed. That's, it's a math equation. There's so much water that they're allocating, and they're saying you can use safely and keep the groundwater. So that's one issue. But then there's all the environmental factors of, what you can use in your crops and all those things. And then just the overall cost of things have gone up so much, and not so much the commodity prices. In fact, they've dropped lately. They're starting to come back a little bit. And those things come and go because farmers overplant,
Right.
and then they underplant. And we have these cycles. And I've seen them my whole life, several times with particularly looking at almond industry, because I know that one the best. It's never going to stay the same, right? So if it's good today, plan for tomorrow, because it's not going to be the same tomorrow as it is today.
Well, I would have to say that being in farming and farmers, if you can go back in history and just think about like as far back as you can get records, they're dependent on a lot of things that potentially could happen, right? The weather, whether or not the crop is yielding what it needs to, the supply and demand. So these aren't very different than what a lot of businesses face, right? Those are the fundamental pieces. But I do think that there's a lot of risk involved. Like in any other business. But I think the macro factors, like I like to talk about that, the outside that you brought it up, the regulations, the allocations of water, right? You talked about, different type of, aspects of, whether or not the commodity prices are driving, and now you have inflation. These are all things that people didn't get up, 2 years ago.
And labor.
And labor. and just think, oh man, you know what? This is all going to be laid out for me, and I'm going to be able to navigate this, and I see this coming. So I think, when we get back to the fundamentals of coaching, I think what you're really doing is trying to prepare, the people that you're working with, not only to kind of look inward of, how they're going to make adjustments, but things are going to happen. And yeah, I agree. I think things are happening a lot faster in these different industries than they ever have before. I started my business, a little over 15 years ago, and I worked, as a sales professional in other industries. But man, I have really seen a lot more lately. It just seems to, if you're looking at a chart, right, it used to kind of look like this, and there was like less sharp curves, and now it's like up, down, up, down, up, down. And I think there's a lot of elements of that people aren't necessarily prepared for. And I think if you've been in business for a long time, I think it can be quite frustrating because, you're constantly having to change.
We used to do strategic plans with businesses for 5 to 10 year periods. We'd say, okay, where do we want to be 5 years from now? That was the short end. 10 years would be longer end. Maybe a more mature company would do a 10-year plan.
Right.
But a business that just started, they just want to get through this year, right?
Sure.
So, but let's say a business has been in business for 10 years, we used to do these plans for 5 years. Now we're looking at 2 or 3 years because we don't know what's beyond that. It's really hard to see it, right? And you need to be reassessing. You talked about the external factors. So the first thing we do when we coach is we assess. So the assessment is asking a bunch of questions about what's going on in the markets, what's going on in your industry, what's going on with government regulations, what's going on with labor, all the factors, the inputs for your business and your customers' businesses. Because you have to understand your customer's business too,
right?
What they're going to be wanting in the future, right? So you have to take all these things into account. Then you have to build a plan based on that. But then you got to go, once you implement it, you start executing, you've got to go back and reassess. Is it working? And has anything changed since we did that plan? So I'm finding that, strategic planning is becoming more of a fluid process than an event. We used to have like 2-3 day retreats with a company to create the strategic plan. Now it's really like every month we should be reviewing the plan and how we're changing it.
That's crazy. And this is probably just as recent, right? Probably
That's
like
just
in the last
few years. Yeah.
Because of how everything changed, so dramatically, especially, after the lockdown and so on and so forth. I mean, you interrupt a big supply chain. It's interesting to see how, these outside factors really just impact not only like one person's business, but just like not only industries, but related industries and so on and so forth, because so many jobs are, and opportunities are created, based on, people, making money here and spending money there. Right. So I think a lot of folks are probably, with this whole technology trend and AI, trying to figure out, where they fit in that space. I think, the labor issue has, always been something that, I think people are dealing with, and, rising costs. I mean, expenses are nothing new, but it seems like I'm seeing a lot more of this increase in expense. And, I talk to a lot of people and they call it, profit fade, profit shrink. I mean, whatever they want to design it. But the bottom line is, hey, we're not making as much profit.
There's
we're
less
still doing
money
that,
coming to the bottom line.
Absolutely. And where's it all going? And that's something that I think, in one of your many abilities that you're bringing to the table is really helping the business owners or whoever the leadership is, really prepare to not only, analyze where it's going, but let's come up with a plan, to do something about it going forward, and just know that plan better be fluid because there's so many things happening so quickly.
Yeah, and one of the questions I always ask people is, how are you measuring? So that's usually starts with an accounting program, bookkeeping program, measuring, all the things that are going on in the organization, and what are the key things that they need to focus on as far as numbers. And a lot of people go, I don't want to do all that,
I hear that a lot. Like, is that, so the question I have for you, is that something new? Is that,
No.
And I ask that because I mean, look, you get into business, most entrepreneurs, I mean, they are, taking a risk. They have an idea. They want to bring it out to market. They're very passionate about that idea and they want to bring it in. And then when you get somebody that kind of has to say, okay, well, now you got to get super organized and you got to track this and you got to track that. And, I think you told me once about, there was a book on processes. So a lot of larger companies, have their processes really dialed in.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time. A lot of resources to develop those and train their people and train their management. And but a small business can benefit by doing, well, I'll say like first level of that.
Right.
They don't have, take somebody who manufactures airplanes like Boeing. If they find some little flaw in their manufacturing process, it can mean millions of dollars, right? If a 1% change in one area of their business might be millions of dollars, right?
Right.
If you change, if a small business changes 1%, it's not a big deal, but they'll probably be able to do 5 or 10 of those different changes for, small percentage. It'll add up and it'll impact their lives.
Well, that's interesting you say that because I'm a firm believer in that. And I think a lot of times, as an entrepreneur myself, I look at things that I want to do and make adjustments on. And I'm just looking at this, huge list of things that, hey, I want to go do this, and then being realistic about the time frame. But one of the things that I've benefited from coaching is, okay, well, what's the most important? Like, when are you going to prioritize this? Knowing that this is potentially fluid, some of these adjustments that you think up in your head, may not necessarily work, long term. They may work short term. And they also can cause other issues that you may not even be thinking about. So if you're not analyzing
and measuring it
or inspecting what you expect. I remember there was a guy I used to work for that used to use that. And I was like, my gosh, it's like, it's like these, euphemisms or, these sayings, but what he really said was pretty accurate, because if my expectation is this because I do these things and it doesn't turn out that way, and I don't take the time to inspect it and find out why, then I'm really not making any progress. I'm just kind of rolling around the circle.
You remind me of another little joke kind of thing. You know what a triple bogey is in golf, right?
Right. Yeah.
What's the definition of a triple bogey?
Well, yeah, if par is the amount of shots you have it to get into the hole,
4.
right? It's a bar 4, so you're supposed to get it in 4. If you have a triple bogey, that means you shot 7.
Shot 7.
Right?
But really, the definition of a triple bogey is a bad shot followed by a stupid shot. You went into the bushes, but instead of going around the tree and just get out in the fairway and then hit up, you say, no, I can go through, and you hit another.
So you double down and you elevate the risk.
You end up with a triple bogey or more, right?
Well, I mean, I think
and so business is the same thing. It's like if you like you said, if you inspect what you expect and you find that it's not happening, instead of just plowing forward with another bad shot to continue on that, you make an adjustment.
Well, that's funny you say that because I like to play golf, and I'm not quite as good as I would like to be.
Oh, me either.
But I think I would be a lot better if I probably took the latter part of that advice instead of always trying to go, man, I got myself in the bushes here. Let's try to, do this low probability shot because, I'm just so great at the low probability shot to make it happen. Now, the point is that might work, one time out of 5. Right. But really, what's probably more effective over the long run, if you're taking that trend, is to punch out and then have a clear shot.
Think about this: a business owner makes a mistake, decides to go a certain way. The whole company, all the people working in it, they're living part of that, right? And they're probably going to have to dig out of that hole that they're creating, right? So the emotional toll on that second stupid shot in the golf, it can make your whole game go downhill for the rest of the round, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing in the business. If you make a mistake, okay, correct and move back. So that's what I do too, is I ask, well, how is that new initiative working, Charles? And then you have to really think about, well, is it achieving what you want? Is it truly doing that? If you're honest with yourself, if it is, fine. If it's not, what do we need to do different? What got in the way of it being successful? Maybe it's just an obstacle we didn't see. Now we need to take care of it.
Well, that's interesting you bring that part up because I don't know if a lot of people really think about how their decisions, as the leader are affecting, the rest of the team. It's like, okay, yeah, it didn't work out. I'm frustrated. I'm going to double down. And they're not looking at the ripple effect, down on the team around them, that's supporting the business to be able to move forward. And I think that's very frustrating to a lot of people. And I come across that a lot and I'm sure you do as a coach, when you're asked to not only coach, say the business owner or the CEO, but you're also asked to coach the management team or mid-level management and so on and so forth. Or if they're salespeople, whatever in the organization of how it's all structured and set up. I bet you find a lot of frustration, down the line when you kind of get that type of, mode of referendi per se, that people take those, constant shots. I think there's fallout from that.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes strategically, an entrepreneur or a business owner won't want to share why they're going going a direction or whatever. They can't tell everybody, but there might be something down the road. They're going to partner with some other company or something, and they can't talk about that, but they're setting themselves up for it. So people are going, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? They don't know why. But often they can share things, and I find they don't share maybe enough of why they want to do something. And sometimes the failure of the execution is because they didn't share why, so the people didn't invest themselves 100% into executing and making sure it happened. They get to say later, I told you it wouldn't work. They sabotage it, even if they don't say they sabotage it. You can sabotage by commission or omission. Right?
Interesting.
You can commit to something that's not done well, or you can not do something that should have been done and still have poor results, right? So people do that. They don't engage. If they don't engage, they're not pulling in the same way. Think of a boat that's got rowers. They all got to be rowing together, right? Otherwise, they're not maximizing the speed of the boat. It's kind of the same thing. We'll get everybody going in the same direction. But it's not, like I said, there are exceptions, but 90% of the time, you can share why we're going to go this way. You get people going that way, and you can get behind them instead of being in front of them trying to drag them with a rope.
That's a great visual. I think you really kind of boiled it down to really a big problem. I think if you're leading, a group of people and a team, in a direction, but you're not telling them, the why, or, to get them motivated or show them the vision. And if they don't clearly understand the vision, then they're just, potentially going to be, I'm not saying consciously or subconsciously sabotage or working against you, but I mean, that really makes sense. But I think it is very normal, for business owners or leaders to maybe be a little bit cagey. I don't know why. I mean, this is something, I mean, just to be vulnerable here, that I've experienced. It's like, well, why do I need to tell everybody why, we need to do this? But what I've found in, changing that leadership style and really letting people be engaged in the vision and adopt the vision and get behind it, we're having a much higher rate of success in accomplishing the goals that we want.
Right. And, it could be even in the little things. Like, so we talk about the big vision and where we're going as an organization, but every day there's problems that pop up, like with clients or customers, and we need to adjust how we're going to deliver that good or service to them to fit their need, to better serve them, and to stay efficient on our end also. So if we can explain, like, I'm going to change this process, and don't just say, I'm going to change the process to this and that's it. Okay, end of story. No, tell them why we're going to change the process, and they might even have some input on how to even make it better, because they didn't realize you were looking at that, and that the customer called you and complained about something, that they didn't even know about. But now they can tell you, well, yeah, I can tell you how to fix that. We need to do this, and they might know more than you do about it.
Right. And I think therein lies the myth. I think a lot of people think that, they have to be the smartest person in the room, and they have to be the one that has all the answers. But what's the point of having a team around you, if you're just going to be the one? I mean, you might as well just be like doing it yourself. And I think that's a fundamental opportunity. We'll call it an opportunity, but
Yeah.
but it is for in leadership to know that you can depend on people to bring ideas. I mean, I hear a lot of people say you don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
Right. Yeah, you surround yourself with smarter people. You're going to become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You've probably heard something like that. So why wouldn't you want to have the smartest people on your team? And why wouldn't you want to encourage them to use their intelligence to drive the boat?
Right.
Versus you having to, why don't you just sit back there as a coxswain and let them drive the boat?
Right. And let them, and direct it and share the vision. I mean, ultimately, they came to work at the company, right, to help you succeed. But if you're doing the counterintuitive, like call it the self-sabotage, and just making everybody feel like, why am I even here? Why do I even say anything?
Yeah.
What's the point of doing this? I think that's probably what you're really kind of driving home. So, no, this has been very productive and very helpful. So, Eric, how do people find you?
Well, I have a website, vertuacoaching.com, or they can call me at 661-343-2373, or they can, email it, eric@vertuacoaching.com.
No, that's great. Well, I really have enjoyed our conversation today. I think this is one of these things that it's very nice to be able to talk with somebody who started in one career, and you still do that, right? Because you do the farm services, but you were passionate about helping other people, and felt that you could take what you've learned and what you're continuing to learn, to help other people get there.
Yep.
Well, thank you for listening. This has been an absolute pleasure to be talking with Eric Merz from Vertua Coaching. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with someone you think needs to hear it. I always encourage you to subscribe. We are HeyCharles Biz on YouTube, HeyCharles on Apple Podcast and Spotify, HeyCharles77 on Instagram, and Charles Ernst on LinkedIn. Thank you, and see you next time.